Hello, this is Angela. Welcome. This is your weekly Wake Up Enlightenment Now streaming broadcast. And it's the first of a weekly wake up call. And it's a discussion and sharing about enlightenment in these times. What is enlightenment? Why is it important? And why is it happening now? Yes, it's happening. Could be something happening to you right now and you don't even know it. And we're going to share what Dance with Angela, which is my baby, my brainchild and my body child. Dance with Angela is sharing in terms of movement, how movement has shaped my path towards enlightenment. Enlightenment is actually bringing light into the body. And enlightenment is something that's already being taught on earth. And around you now, people are exploring enlightenment through many means. It could be just meditation or yoga. It could be breathing. It could be sitting and looking at the sunset. A lot of people are doing this spontaneously. Some of us are being forced to do it because we're in lockdown and there's nothing else to do. So we've all been given an opportunity to stare at our navel or anything. And it can be disturbing. So this weekly broadcast can be about moaning, about the trials and tribulations of enlightenment. But it's really a call to you. You are the one. If any of you have watched The Matrix, Neo goes on a journey where he discovers he is the one. He has to go through a few hurdles to get that belief or knowing. And it mirrors the path of enlightenment in the movie. So that movie was a metaphor. It was like a precursor for these times to tell us that just because you're locked in your home doesn't mean that you're not doing something important. In fact, humanity has not had anything like this before on this scale. There have been other plagues, so people probably stayed away from each other. On a global scale, this is probably the only time we've had something like this. And for people to be indoors, really examining their life, it's a form of enlightenment. So enlightenment, remember, is bringing light into the body. And of course, the brain is part of your body. I remember that sometimes. And the light comes in when we get up in the morning and we stand up. The spine is erect. The sun, if you go outside, is touching that top part of the brain, and that wakes up the hormonal system. So enlightenment is all those simple things that we do every day, like go out and experience the sun. In yoga, they have the sun salutation because you're mimicking that very thing and you're focusing your consciousness on the inside more, and you're focusing the movement and the awareness. You're not necessarily focusing the breath. The breath, it's happening automatically anyway. But as you bring your awareness in, you start to work with breath. So this channel is about dance and movement. And in this video today, I want to share a few things about dance and what it did to lead me towards the path of enlightenment. I didn't know I was looking for it, to be honest. I just knew I wasn't happy unless I was dancing. And I wanted to share the dance with you with a few seated chair exercises. I will have a few outtakes from some of my online classes. And I also teach seated meditation. So this channel will be sharing how seated meditation and dance work with light, with energy, to bring natural abilities in your body to align with your enlightenment, with your highest good, or with the light coming into your body. So some of you may know that I also do healing. Healing is a path to support this process of enlightenment. So, for example, you could have had an injury and damaged some part of your body, like a leg or a muscle in the leg or a joint. And when we work with healing, we use physical touch. We can use physical touch like a physiotherapist. And a lot of massage therapists also use subtle energies. So they may just use their focused touch. So it's the intent behind the touch. It's not just the physical part of it, but it's the intent to talk to the different parts of the muscle or the joint. And the joint has ligaments and there's fascia and there's many parts to the body. So when you look at really profound massage therapists, they're never just working at the physical. They go into a dialogue of touch, which goes to the different layers of the body. And then when they work over many, many years, they start to learn this thing called energy. Okay. And so light, when we're working with light in this capacity with healing through physical touch, it becomes something much more spacious and less dense, less physical. So you can have a lot of massage therapists, they'll tell you they're working on a muscle and they may stop doing a firm touch and start to just work with a different quality of touch, which works with the flow of the body or the energy of the body. In fact, some people really believe the more they work with massage therapy, it's not only understanding how everything functions and works, but it's actually allowing the body to respond to the touch and to show the therapist where the energy needs to move. So we know this now through biofeedback. When we do biofeedback, we hook up the body to a machine and we do certain stimuli with the machine. And the client, the person hooked to the machine, sees that machine, their actual consciousness changes. So consciousness is a form of light through our mind or through our ability to observe and watch ourselves. And consciousness can be in any aspect of life. You can be cleaning the streets and have consciousness. You don't need to be meditating to do it. However, some of us have been locked up because we've been forced to find ways to become conscious or get stuck in some other parts of the mind, like the emotional mind or the addictive mind or the analytical, critical, self-sabotaging mind. So enlightenment is understanding that that's part of the human condition. The mind and the emotional brain are not great. However, there is a consciousness that works with them. And that consciousness, for thousands of years, we've been exploring it. If we look at enlightenment, consciousness doesn't need to be understood. It needs to be experienced. So a lot of the great teachers, you're not going to find them at universities. You're not going to find them necessarily in the mass media. There are, of course, a lot of popular teachers on consciousness, and I'm certainly coming through YouTube about consciousness. However, my experience was a lot of teachers that took me on an experiential journey. So here I'm going to go back to the dance and what happened. So when I used to dance, I was a teenager at home. And in the 70s, a lot of us didn't go out. I wasn't allowed to go out in my family anyway. So I was stuck at home a lot dancing to Duran Duran and a few other bands and New Romantics and Eurythmics and other great music from the 80s. And in that creative play, I discovered a freedom, a sense of being creative beyond my four walls. And I kept doing that as a way to really discover how to create different realities. I used to really identify like I was a time traveler, like Doctor Who, traveling to different dimensions and different planets. And I watched a lot of TV, so I had a lot of material to use from our TV shows back then. And so then after a while, I was experiencing a lot of dark feelings, and I didn't feel good in my body. And I used the dance to escape the dark feelings. But after many years, those dark feelings didn't go away until the point I started to really question, do I feel like good enough to be on this earth? Am I worthy of even being here? How bad am I? How just like useless am I? And those feelings permeated and kept going. So I had sort of depression, basically, undiagnosed, and I had it for a long period. However, then I was allowed out of the house, right? So I was able to go out and party and go to clubs and have a ball and dance and meet amazing people, do shows and have theatre projects and a theatre group and bands and stuff, and had a great time. And they were just the best times because we used to just go out and try stuff. We didn't know what we were doing really. And we also discovered friendships and had a lot of groups that worked together to put things on stage. We did festivals, all sorts of friends and groups I had did projects like that or had a band and played in gigs. And that for a while, because it was a great social sort of celebration time, it was a good enough distraction from the negative thoughts, feeling useless or why am I here? But ultimately, those thoughts didn't go away. So around 26, I discovered a class, a Sufi class. And in that class, we were moving very slowly in the dance. I didn't know it was a Sufi class. I thought it was yoga. I came to the wrong class. And I'm in the middle of the class doing this Sufi movement going, this is the weirdest yoga I've ever tried. And it's got Arabic music. And I like Arabic music. I like to belly dance. And I had no idea it was Sufi. I really thought I was doing yoga. So I'm doing these slow movements. And I kept coming back because I spoke to the teacher and found out it wasn't yoga. And I said, this is really interesting. What is it? And as I kept going through the class, I started to feel this thing inside me that had no language. And it was something I felt inside me and outside me. It was beautiful and almost too good to be true. So, of course, because I had this thoughts that I was useless, like, it's not going to be me, is it? I'm not the one, right? And fast forward a bit, I went to America because of that to study with her master, her Sufi master, Adnan Sarhan. And I spent 3 months really, really digging up some stuff around that darkness, but also experiencing these great states of like incredible connection to something that was so amazing. A few times I'd be in tears because of how amazing this thing I was feeling. And it wasn't me, right? I was connecting to it, whatever that was. And that's when the dance showed me that all of the experiences I had in the dance so far were working towards this peak experience. I didn't have to have any substances or anything to get me there. I didn't need any shaman. I didn't need anybody. I just needed to feel the music and the spirit in the dance. And that's what Sufi dance is. It's an ancient practice where people literally used to do several things: drumming, chanting, breath, repetitive movement, and dance like repetitive dances, sacred dances. And they also did some fasting and whirling. So you might know the whirling dervishes that are in Turkey and a few other places. So that was like a pinnacle. The whirling is only a pinnacle of the work, but there were so many aspects. And a lot of it was also just being in nature and experiencing the profound qualities of this world. So we would fast, or we would be dancing or breathing, and then we'd go out into the forest and just experience the nature. So it's very integrated experience because it was like you might have a few times where you weren't in that state, but that was kind of like when you were cooking or hanging out, laughing with people. But in general, we had a lot of high states. And because of that very intense, consistent practice of the Sufi work, I started to understand that God wasn't just something that you could put a finger on. It was something much more expansive. Like if you read Sufi poets, they bring language to it. And Khalil Gibran, not a poet, but he's influenced by the Sufi heritage. He talks about love as well. And he talks about a love that you have romantically is also something very much connected to this divine love. And he puts such beautiful language to it, but not really quite one word. It's a state, it's an experience. And enlightenment, when you work with spiritual teachers, which I'm going to share with you in the streams, my teachers from India, there are actual distinct states, and you can experience these different states throughout your entire life. As a child, you probably experienced every one of them, but you were pre-language, you were pre-social skills, you were probably just rolling on your back and staring at something and having that state. So as adults, we have to unlearn a lot of our conditioning to get those states. And the dance for me was a very powerful mode. It was an intense opening to what I knew. I knew the dance connected me that way, but I never understood that there were these traditions in the world, and belly dance is one of them as well, that connect you to this beautiful understanding of the universe, of love, and of God, if you want to call it God. It's also our connection to why are we here. So I wanted to talk about why are we here. Just have a light, finish to the stream today. But the concern that we have on the planet, and why I'm wanting to do these streams about wake up, enlightenment now, is that enlightenment is in your reach. It's not some fairy tale. It's not just for the Buddha and the others who've done it. It's within our reach. It is like the Matrix, all right? But the feeling, it's the kiss between Trinity and Neo at the end of the movie. It's the feeling. Enlightenment isn't like I'm better than other people. It's feeling that you are one with others. There's a slight part of the Matrix film that I would like to add. After the kiss, and after that, love is the answer, which is a lot of the Hollywood movie ending type thing. The actual finishing piece is understanding that in order to experience love, there's a journey that you have to have inside yourself. You have to commit to something passionately. And I guess that's assumed with the love of Neo and Trinity, with their final kiss being the solution to a lot of his understanding his power. And the love that we're talking about is much bigger than any romantic love or any desire to just accept yourself how you are. The love that we're talking about in enlightenment is understanding how you are part of this universe, and the universe is enormously wonderful and immense. So wonderful that you may feel so small, but your small piece has the immensity of that universe within it. And when we danced in the Sufi world, we actually experienced these states of being atoms. If you're doing the whirling, which we didn't do often because you had to prepare yourself for it, you had to be trained to do it, and at the vibration where you could tolerate it without falling over, which some of us did. As you're spinning, you actually start to experience the atomic energy. the energy of vibration. And you're just vibration when you're spinning. You're starting to experience that vibration that hums through all material and matter. And you realize in that vibration is this immense universe, this power, this intelligence, this knowing, this fiber that runs through all existence, all physical existence and all non-physical existence. And if you look at an atom, most of it doesn't exist. And you start to experience that knowing or that sense when you are in the Sufi experiences, the whirling, but also even simple things like we used to do chanting for about an hour and a half. And you just go into this feeling of the chant, the sound, the vibration of the sound. So this is why people use chants, mantras, not to just get you out of your anxiety, but to connect you to this knowing that's within our bodies, it's within our cells, it's within the atoms, but so much of our collective consciousness is full of doo-doo that gets in the way of that vibration or that connection to the immensity that lives inside of us. So for the first time when I was 26, I started to see how much my doo-doo was in the way of me connecting to this immense love, this immense universe that we exist in. So my slight kind of trigger for you to wake up, a slight trigger, all right, it's a slight trigger, is to contemplate, why would we even be on a planet to have to go through our doo-doo to experience or to try and end up experiencing enlightenment at all? And it's a big question. People have been contemplating it for ages. However, I'm putting that question to you because most people are still really, really in anxiety, in stressed out, having kittens kind of behavior in this pandemic and pointing a lot of fingers and attacking people. And that's not really going to help. If we don't look at inside of us, why am I here? If we don't see how you are the one that can actually start to wake up to your own inner connection to that enormous love and power in the universe, not for selfish means, but to actually start to really enjoy living and to look at your life as a journey to some sort of experience where if you were to leave this earth, you'd look back and go, wow, I really feel good about this life. I feel complete. I feel like I touched something and I am leaving this life ready to shuffle off, to go to experience something more wild or interesting or divine. Because most of us in this pandemic are just worrying about toilet paper and trying to think about our security, which completely makes sense, especially if you're in a country where the pandemic is out of control. However, there's others of us who are creating a lot of doo-doo that gets in the way of a very important question. Why am I going through this on earth at all? If you haven't thought about the question, that's fine. Maybe you thought about it and you've got a really cynical answer, because I had those too. I had them when I was going through my dark days. It's like, I'm not worth anything. What's the point of it all? I may as well just give up. That's part of this journey. If you watch the Matrix, Neo goes through that too. And some of the other characters are pretty cynical as well. So it's normal to have cynicism, depression, negative attitudes. And what is also normal is to ask a question about why would you be here to discover anything at all? Is it just that cynical part? Is there anything else that it could be? And if it is, what is it? Enlightenment means you need to be passionate to have it. If you want the cynicism, that's fine. That's what you want. It's your world too. You create it. And my challenge or request is to ask yourself, what is the world you want? Because enlightenment, the journey to it, really needs you to answer that question. Not today, not in an Instagram moment. Oh, I want the perfect lifestyle. Who cares? What is it that you want in the world? Do you want a cynical world? Well, then you are creating it when you're cynical. Because if you're actually really, really wanting enlightenment, and you go on the journey to saying, I want a world that is creating love, then you have to discover what that is. And that becomes a path for you, a dedicated path, a clear path, because every step you're taking, you're like, does this create love? If that's what you want. And if it doesn't create love, instead of going cynical again and saying, well, this world's stuffed, whatever, who cares? Why didn't it create love? What inside of you feels yuck? Most of us are too scared when things feel yucky. And I understand because I had some pretty dark times. But enlightenment is also shining the light on the yucky stuff and practicing anything that gets you to feel good. And this is where I sort of have my suggestions, where if you need some interim things to make you feel good, then do it. The things that make me feel good were things like the dance, the breathing, the meditating, chanting. And I've got my teachers in India. They have meditations, free ones online. They have some paid workshops that are incredible ways to get you immediately connected to that divine loving consciousness of the universe. I'm also going to be having a meditation class that uses the energy that they've initiated me into called Deeksha. And the Deeksha is a divine energy that lightens up your kundalini in a appropriate way. Back in the 90s, we used to do kundalini awakenings, not by choice. Some of us had done substances, some of us had had a mental crisis and had spiritual awakenings that weren't pleasant and weren't leaving our minds in the best of ways. And I studied with a transpersonal psychologist who helped people deal with that, because when you have kundalini erupt, it can be very violent. And that was happening many, many decades ago. That was already happening. From the 80s, my teachers in India started working with people and children to do it in much more safe ways and with rituals, systems, and trainings that helps you to do it gradually. And they started using Deeksha. And the Deeksha is not an instant solution. It's like a drip filter. So it really works with the Kundalini in very gentle ways and helps to work with repetition with the Deeksha to start helping your spiritual energy, which is the Kundalini energy in the body. It helps the spiritual energy in the body to align and start to help you work with any of those darker things or blocks or challenges that you have or emotions that are stuck or just annoying. And it helps you to release them, let them go. So I'm going to have an online class. I've got the link in the description and you can have a look. I'm going to start a weekly stream on Enlightenment Now and waking up our world to what that is, because people have a few ideas about it. So any questions that you might have, I'd love to hear from you, or if you want to vent, maybe we can have a 2-minute vent moment on the live streams as well about certain spiritual issues or just any issues that you might be having with this pandemic situation. We can look at, well, how does the path of enlightenment, bringing light into our bodies, how does that help us? to look at this situation from a different point of view, and to help your heart look at it with more compassion, especially compassion to yourself. So this has been my first one for the times. I don't know how it's streaming out there, and if you've got any comments, you can leave them in the chat, and I look forward to hearing from you and exploring what is enlightenment and calling us all to be the one. Have a great week.